So you start your law firm as soon as you graduate. I mean, you came in
Pretty much.
during a recession where the real estate
Yeah.
market bombed. We're in the major foreclosure crisis at that time.
Yeah.
And I saw you start your law firm out of your mother's apartment.
Yeah, dude. So the truth is no one would hire me. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know anything.
Hmm.
I don't blame anybody for not hiring me. The place that I did work at, I think I was getting like, I don't know, 17 bucks an hour. I started at 15. I worked there 2 years during law school. And then that was down in Miami. I moved back up to Del Rey, which is where my mom was living. I moved back up to Del Rey after law school because, I
Hmm.
didn't have a student housing anymore. So I was driving to Miami every day. And the money that I spent on
Oh,
gas was my paycheck.
yeah.
And no one would hire me. I applied at a couple places. No one wanted me. One place, it was so funny. You think, okay, now I'm a lawyer. So you go into a interview and they go, well, how much do you want? And they literally go, write it down on a piece of paper. So I wrote it down and I pushed the paper forward and they go like, no, we're not prepared. And they wrote down like 36,000 on the piece of paper and they pushed it back towards me. And I'm like, dude, I go, I was making $36,000 a year working at the mall when I was in undergrad. I was like, what are you talking about? I went to law school. And they go, so I thought it was like a negotiation. So I wrote down a little bit bigger number than less of what I wanted, but more closer to their number. They were like, no, man. And the truth is I didn't know anything. And, there was a bad time in the economy, right? It was like 2009 when I graduated. So I just decided, I said, hey, I'm just going to go out on my own, work out of my mom's place. I'll make enough money to, pay my student loans, pay some bills. No problem. Everything will be okay. And I just worked out of there until I couldn't anymore. My mom, she's Cuban. She doesn't
Mhm.
like a messy place. I had demand letters I was doing just pip suits at that time. I had stacks and stacks of demand letters. Like this pile was for Geico. This pile was for State Farm. And I had them all over. And one day I come home and the whole table's clean. It looks beautiful. And I go, Mom, where's all my legal documents? And she's like, no, I put them over there in the corner. They were messing up the whole table. And I was like freaked. I was like, Mom, as an adult, like as an adult lawyer, Mom, these are important legal documents. You can't just go touching them like that. And it is so embarrassing and just emasculating. So that was when I knew I had to move out.
Were you living there with your mother at
I
the
was
time?
living there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was
yeah.
living there, and I had one guy coming in the office,
Yep.
which was the living room, and working. And I remember the HOA. They go, "It is a condo. It is a condo." And the HOA goes like, "Hey, who's this guy coming here every day? Comes at 8, he leaves at 5." So I was like, "Oh no, he's just my friend. We hang out all day. Like, leave us alone." It was a 55 and up community. You know how these people get. So they were all nosy. So anyways, we ended up, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment here in Boca called Boca Arbor Club. I don't remember what I was paying, but it was cheap. And that was my first time. Well, no, in law school I lived on my own, but moving back out on my own as a lawyer. And I ended up having 3 people working out of that 1-bedroom apartment. I didn't want to get an office. I didn't think like, man, having an office, it's too expensive. I was afraid to take that jump. So I ended up
Mhm.
having 3 people working out of my 1-bedroom apartment. It was the weirdest thing. I'd wake up, there's 3 people already working in the office, in the living room. I had no living room. It was desks. I had 3 desks and like a small couch in front of the TV. So
Wow.
bizarre. Yeah.
So you're waking up in the morning and they're in your house.
They're there. Yeah. I mean, back then I would be out all night. I'd be up working all night. And so I'd wake up, let's say like 8 o'clock and they're already there. Yeah.
Wow.
I
Wow.
had an attorney actually working out of my apartment, super nice person. And she was like a friend of a friend. And I remember one day I heard her talking outside on the phone to her friend. And she's like, dude, this is so weird. I'm working out of this guy's apartment because you couldn't get a job back then. It was
Yeah,
impossible to
yeah,
get a job.
I mean, I worked in a law firm. I was in a law firm as an office administrator, and
Mm.
foreclosure was everything. Like
Oh, yeah.
and if you didn't
Yeah.
want to work in foreclosure, you really couldn't find a job too many places.
Mm.
And I mean, realistically, the foreclosure industry kind of destroyed lots of people's resumes at the time because they would go from law firm to law firm to law firm.
Mm.
foreclosure spot to foreclosure spot to foreclosure spot, and then they all wanted to get out of foreclosure. And then you're trying to, and I was doing, and then after that, I was doing staffing for a minute for about 2.5 years. And you
Mm.
get the resume, and staffing. If you were, I don't know if you ever hired a staffing agency, but if you hire a staffing agency, you want someone you can slot right in to get to work, not someone that you have to train and say, well, this is what you do in a pip suit. This is
Right.
like, stuff like
Yeah.
that. And they would be almost unemployable. And
They
because
only knew foreclosure.
all they knew was foreclosure. And for those of you who are not familiar with foreclosure, it's forms.
Mm.
Everyone has the case law. It's all form work with, it's already there. So you're not,
Standard, using
yeah,
the same forms over and over again.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not really learning much of anything.
Mm.
And, I know tons of attorneys that they've actually got out, but they had to basically start back over from,
Mm.
because the foreclosure firms were paying some good money for attorneys. But
Yeah, that's probably why,
yeah,
I never applied to foreclosure. I didn't even
yeah.
think, yeah,
Hmm.
I just knew PIP, and that was all I knew. And I didn't
How'd
even
you get,
know.